We are live here, Ducks on the road. It's an early one out here on the West Coast, but Oregon gets it done 34-14 over Northwestern. Owen, I know it was an early one for us out here in Eugene, but Ducks on the road, able to, after a bit of a slow start, able to work things out and overall play a really strong game against Northwestern. Where are you kind of feeling immediately after this game here?
Yeah, I mean, immediately where I go is this feels like the first game where Oregon really kind of had to take advantage of some mistakes its opponent made instead of just winning on pure talent. That said, there were some moments where just, it was obvious that these Ducks were better than the Wildcats, but it felt like real Big Ten play, which I felt, in the long run is a good place for these Ducks to be and really face some competition like we expected them to.
Exactly. I think that's what we were really looking for Oregon to come out of this week with, just in terms of before they have to go to Penn State here in a couple weeks, get some experience playing on the, even though it's not going to be quite the same scenario when you're playing, in that converted stadium for Northwestern on the Lake as when you're going into Beaver Stadium at Penn State. But still, just getting experience on the road, it's an early start, so that's also a challenge for the Ducks as well. But overall, I think they come out looking pretty solid out of this. Oh, and I know you got the box score pulled up. You want to go down, kind of give us a rundown of who kind of stood out to you on that box score?
Yeah, Dante Moore starts this game. Obviously, lowest completion total of the season. He is very efficient, 16-20, but only 178 yards in this game, 8.9 per completion, a touchdown and interception. We'll get more into the pick because I want to talk about that. But De'Aaron Hill led all rushers in this game with 5 carries for 94 yards, 18.8. The big part of that was a 66-yard rumble. Just got outside, sprung a block. Nobody stopped him. But, this was big because Noah Whittington was not in this game. He was questionable and I don't think had a snap at all.
No.
And so really it was running back by committee. Jaden Lamar stepped up. Jay Harris stepped up. Jordan Davison, once again, looked really great in short yardage situations. Malik Benson leads all receivers, regardless of team, 62 yards, including that really nice Dante Moore rollout completion over there right on the sideline. And then 2 picks for the Ducks in this one. Jerry Mixon gets his second in 2 weeks, and Bryce Betcher gets the one that really changed the game early for the Ducks.
Yeah, we saw Dante able to work it out to a number of different skill position players, but I think it's interesting to see Malik Benson continue to come up as that kind of top receiver in this offense for him. I feel like Dakorien Moore is the leader in targets, got 7 targets for him, even with even in catches, but Benson getting some of those bigger plays downfield. I think he's a really nice option as that secondary because you can see they're kind of going to Moore as that, hey, you're the number one. We're going to be able to kind of attack with your skill set out there. But Benson gives them a really nice secondary option who can kind of, as we saw last week, take the top off the defense, but do a lot of other really dynamic things within this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think where he really shone, there was a couple of nice sideline catches where he was just there for Dante kind of when he got through his reads and stuff wasn't there for him. And he's just, I think it's part of the fact that he's played so much football. And you see that now. So that just necessarily isn't something that Dakorien Moore has yet. He just has the ability to get open. Malik Benson's really great kind of deeper into the play.
Yeah, that was something they talked about over the summer when I talked to Malik Benson at Media Day, was that him and Dante had been able to find that connection, and he's kind of been able to find that connection with with the quarterbacks. He was able to really become a leader within that receiving room pretty quickly. So I think that just kind of stands out in terms of the kind of personality the guy like Malik Benson has, where he can, he's jumping from place to place, but he's able to, kind of ingratiate himself into the offense pretty quickly and kind of be able to find that connection with the starting quarterback.
Yeah. And I do want to get back to Dante Moore a little bit in this game because he was very efficient. And this felt a little bit more like a Dylan Gabriel game where, the shots downfield maybe don't work out. Maybe we're not making the best decisions. But I look up at a point and I say, hey, like, listen, in the second half right now, he doesn't have an incompletion. And that's exactly what Oregon needs in this game, because this isn't a game where they're trying to blow the doors off Northwestern necessarily. It's a game where you're just easing away. And it's milking the clock that really works. And that's the style of quarterback that operates well in this offense in this situation. The pick was tough, but it was interesting because he made that throw to Malik Benson last week against Oklahoma State over the linebacker, but it just felt like the linebacker was more aware this time, and he couldn't get it up and down. I don't know, maybe if the wind had something to do with it too. I was a little bit curious what you thought of the pick.
Yeah, the throw just didn't quite get there. It was a really, I don't know the name on that Northwestern linebacker there, but it was a terrific job by him. You could see the defense playing a Tampa 2 coverage where he's the middle linebacker, has to kind of run the seam and run that post as a rail down the middle there. he gets back in coverage, sees Dante Moore's eyes the whole time, and then a really athletic play to get up and go get that ball. I think it was underthrown. I don't know if the wind could have affected that at all. Just probably wasn't. It would have been a very, very tight window to hit anyways. The safety was kind of coming over the top as well. But just not a less than ideal decision making there, but also a rare kind of miss from Dante Moore in this game.
I was gonna say we haven't seen him make that kind of mistake yet this year.
Exactly.
That's why it stood out.
You're allowed to make that mistake because you can take a little bit more risk there when you're already up in this game, like the way the Ducks were. So, and we saw him make some terrific throws other places in the game. I think the arm talent is still very much there, and I'm not worried about that one interception. It was an aggressive play, but those kind of things can happen sometimes when you have an aggressive quarterback.
Absolutely, and so if we get into this little offensive start here, like does that concern you? The fact that these Ducks, like we didn't see the rushing attack really get going that early. You had to rely on some explosive plays to really and the pick from Betcher to kind of step away from Northwestern and prove that you really are better.
Especially after how explosive the last game got off to in terms of its start, and not just obviously the first drive, then Noah Whittington takes it, then they get it back one play into Corian Moore goes for a huge touchdown. So the offense has at every point in this season just the first team offense at least marched straight down the field. Slightly surprised to just see a punt in the first place, but like you said, I was Oregon's run game just didn't really have it didn't really feel like it had a lot of juice today until De'Aaron Hill got in there. I think Jaden Lamar is a very good running back, and he carried the ball well a couple times early in the game, but he was held to around like 3 yards per carry or so, not super great efficiency, and I think it wasn't his fault. Northwestern's defensive line just did a pretty good job. I'll have to go back and watch it, but I don't know if Dave Iuli really had a great game out there at right guard. It seemed like they were getting penetration like on him in the run game. The interior of Oregon's offensive line, it has been such a strength early so far this season in creating those gaps in the run game. It seemed like they didn't have their best day necessarily, and it looked like it was their first time playing, even if it is Northwestern, like a legitimate competition, at the Power 4 level. Although Oklahoma State is that. By a couple of those shots early in that game killed so much of the energy for that team that I don't know if most of that game they're really playing against what Oklahoma State truly can even be.
Yeah, and to keep going with the offensive line, that meant that Dante Moore had some pressure in his face too, which we said, it's not necessarily what the Ducks want, but maybe we're hoping for just a little bit to get him in the situations where he has to go make a play. And he didn't on that first drive. He had pressure in his face, couldn't complete the check down, but kind of stepped up and made those plays. At the end of the first half, there was the 4-minute drill, which he's, it's the second or third time he's managed the clock just excellently for this team and left them with 31 seconds on the clock by the time Jordan Davison punched it in, or Jaden Lamar rather punched it in, and they couldn't do anything, kneeled it out. Where do we stand with this? Because we saw him deal with the pressure. Is he going to be good? Is that something he's still learning? Is it both?
Yeah, I was really impressed today by Dante Moore's ability to operate in some of those situations. That is what we were talking about on our show last week, was that we do want to, what does it look like when he has to drop back on 3rd and 8, 3rd and long, and kind of read out some of these situations as a true quarterback. And when you're not getting those easy looks and those easy reads within Will Stein's system, and when some of those weren't there today because Northwestern was doing a really good job rallying and tackling to keep Oregon's receivers to short gains and the short yardage passing stuff. Dante Moore looked really, really good. Kind of learned from that one early, got pressured, hit a check down to Davison. But after that, a couple of really nice passes. And then, like you said, that 4-minute drill, 3rd time this season, first game of the year, 2-minute drill, goes down, scores a touchdown. Last week against Oklahoma State, 4-minute drill, goes down, scores a touchdown at the end of the half. And then this week against Northwestern, 4-minute drill, touchdown at the end of the half. 3 for 3 for Dante Moore. Really impressed by that. And on that drive, early in it, drops back 3rd and 10, hits a big pass over the middle to the Corian Moore, just stepping up and hitting it into a window. And then a nice job again, stepping up into a window to hit Malik Benson for another big pass. So really impressed by Dante.
And then he scrambles on 3rd and 2 that same drive.
Exactly.
He's really shown he is willing to take hits. I don't know if he loves it, but that is not something he's concerned about, because this is the second or third time he's kind of gotten hit after a play.
He plays quarterback like a football player. He's willing to. I don't love when my quarterbacks dive forward, instead of sliding with their feet forward. In terms of that's how you're going to get hit. But when you're in these situations, he's trying to pick up the first down just like any other player is, and he's trying to protect himself like a quarterback. But he's playing like a football player out there, and I think that was important to see.
Yeah, I think it's something And that's something that fires your team up, right? Like when you're not that he has to win over this team, but like when he's proven that he's that guy, that's kind of how you do it.
Absolutely. I think he's really Mark Ingram was trying to get him to do like a Heisman pose on the like little post game afterwards when they were talking to the crew from the Big Noon Kickoff people. But and Dante was like, I'm too humble to, get up there and do that. And he didn't have his greatest day ever. Not necessarily. He had some very nice plays. That throw to Sadiq was also an absolute
Yeah.
dime for that touchdown. But yeah, I think he's a guy that he doesn't feel like there is that pressure on himself to really go out there and perform and do everything for this offense all the time, and so he can play really free and really relaxed, and I think that has really shown through this early part of the season because of how comfortable he's looked back there and comfortable he's looked in situations where we did have to see him operate with the offense behind the sticks today.
Yeah. And I just think it's important to put him in those situations before you do it. When like the game is really, really on the line. The
Yeah,
game
and
was never particularly on the line here. It's gonna be in State College.
Everything's gonna be going twice as fast when you're at Penn State and it's 3rd and long against that defense versus Northwestern. So good to get those, just have the opportunity to see what that looks like with pressure in your face and trying to read out the defense like that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Let's just get a little bit into what made this Northwestern team like a little bit dangerous. And I think the big part was the rushing attack. They're missing their number one back here, but still won the ground battle. Still had at least one guy averaging over 5 yards a carry, another guy over 4 yards a carry. In the first half. Is this a cause for concern? There really hasn't been a lot of rushing success against the Ducks early this season, and this felt like a departure kind of from that.
Yeah, I definitely thought there was some slight cause for concern from what Northwestern was able to consistently generate early in this game with what they were doing on the ground. It felt like they got away from it, and then that's when the Ducks were able to capitalize with some of those mistakes through the air. But early in the game, they took up 6 minutes of time to move the ball about like 30 yards on their first drive, just because they were pounding it with the ball, pounding it on the ground and picking up 3 to 4 or even 5 yards on some of these carries and able to move the sticks and keep Oregon's defense out there on the field. Northwestern does develop offensive linemen out of anything that they do. Like recently, we have seen them put guys like Peter Skoronsky in the league and guys like Rashawn Slater in the league for the Chargers, who is unfortunately out now. But like that's the thing that they have been able to do is develop some of those offensive linemen. And their offensive line looked, it looked like a Big Ten offensive line out there today and was able to generate some pushback with Oregon's defensive line. I thought it was interesting that in the second half, Oregon went to Terrence Green instead of Tion Gray as that second defensive tackle next to Amari Washington. I don't know how much of a difference that made necessarily. I definitely have to check out what those guys were doing on the film. But Dan said it at the half that was where they needed to focus on, and I think that will be the area of focus for them this week, especially after that Northwestern breaks a 79-yard touchdown there late in the game. Dan was clearly not happy about that in his little interview after the game. So we're definitely going to have to work on what's going on the ground, because I just feel like Oregon's defensive front should get so much more of a push than they're getting right now against the run, especially from some of those guys in the middle.
And you feel like there's so many talented guys across there, and there's so much depth in the middle, and they go and get Bear Alexander out of the portal. They're just the amount of weight on the defensive line. They're talking about before the game. All these guys are over 300 pounds. There's multiple guys over 330. It doesn't feel like, even though Northwestern, yes, like is a line that can push guys around. Like this is where Oregon should really be hanging its hat this year. And that didn't feel like it happened. And I'm curious what it'll look like against Penn State. Again, when you have multiple backs that can both really pose a danger.
Yeah, I would be worried about Penn State gashing this team at this point. I don't think that's guaranteed to happen on the ground, but I think it's certainly a threat that the Ducks need to be worried about. When you look at Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, just the two guys that they have from a Penn State team. Both of those guys are, have that kind of juice that we saw from a guy like De'Aaron Hill today for the Ducks, where if you get them out in space on a counter run and you clear a big hole for them, they can hit that second level, and all of a sudden it's a game changing play because they take it 50+ yards.
Yeah. Ducks, though, changed the game on defense. Bryce Betcher gets kind of a tip drill interception after, Northwestern really does get its rushing game going. And that really felt like the moment where it just the air got let out of all those 12,000 fans in the stadium, where hey, it felt like, hey, we're putting something together. Can we go score on the Ducks? and then you make a mistake like that. Because before this game we talked about how much Northwestern really needs to build the run in order to be able to pass, and they built the run, but then just couldn't complete the pass. Preston Stone threw 4 picks against Tulane. He throws 2 in this game. Is that just where they lost it?
I felt like that play to Bryce Betcher really turned around the momentum of this game early on because Oregon's offense gets stopped for the first time of the season. Northwestern moving the ball somewhat pretty well. I mean, at least taking up clock and keeping Oregon's offense off the field while moving to around midfield, and then an interception to Bryce Betcher, and he was making plays early in that drive as well. Able to like tip a pass that he nearly intercepted, just kind of playing like the rover, kind of like a middle position on like a cover 1 look. He's just they talk about it every game. Everybody knows about him as an outfielder, but I continue to be very impressed by what he does in pass coverage and how much better he's gotten over the past couple of years. You could really feel that his instincts are just a lot better back there because it felt like he has been. He switched from safety to linebacker. He's really committed full time to football at this point. He just has so much more experience back there that he looks super comfortable in coverage. And then Jerry Mixon, phenomenal game today from him. I was really impressed.
You're banging the Jerry Mixon's the starter drum. Like,
I have been because he came out as a starter in week 1 for this team. Devin Jackson started week 2. Devin Jackson out there again today. I have to say I've been slightly unimpressed by what Devin Jackson has done out there at his kind of will linebacker position. For a guy that is as fast as he is, he just seems very hesitant to react and kind of like commit to things at times, and it leaves him behind on play. You can see that he only gets, I think, 1 tackle today out there. He's kind of not making the type of impact that you would hope he would. And then Jerry Mixon comes in and with about the same amount of snaps, just making a huge impact on the game, getting that interception second week in a row with an interception. And just, I really like his instincts in coverage. Like similarly to Bryce Betcher, he's able, second week in a row, he's able to get in front of one and jump a route, but he moves really well. This is a guy that Betcher talked about at Big Ten media days over the summer as like almost moving like a defensive back in terms of the way he is out there in coverage, and then also in the run game. Huge stop. Northwestern eventually punches that one in for a touchdown on 4th and goal, but just turns a running back away at the goal line. Like hit him at the 1 yard line and kept him out of the end zone. That's not something you see every day from a linebacker. And then another one earlier on that drive is a 3rd down, and he gets in, or not on that drive, but a different drive. Where Northwestern was backed up. They ended up going for on 4th down, and Oregon gets a big stop because of Amari Washington. But Bryce Betcher, or not Bryce Betcher, but Jerry Mixon on that first one gets in there on 3rd down, and he's immediately in the backfield, just kind of jumps the play, recognizes it really well, and able to impact it and force the ball carrier into another defender to help get that stop. So I've been really impressed by him, and I think he could take this Oregon defense to the next level if he continues to get more snaps going forward.
Yeah, and I think part of it is you want to pick the guys that work together well, too.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like Betcher and Mix are the guys that really play off together well. You kind of see on some of these tip drills, they just feel like, they don't end up in the same space as each other. They end up playing off each other really well. They communicate well. Betcher, we know, is the guy with the green dot, but Jerry Mixon is able to work in there. And I feel like when you're talking about the starting lineup and you have guys who are similar athletically, that's where you want to go. You want to say, hey, like which ones of these guys work together the best?
Mm-hmm. And with that tip drill from Betcher, I think that just speaks to him being able to be in the right place at the right time. I think that's something he's improved on so much. When he first played as a linebacker 2 seasons ago, he was really wild, kind of all over the place. Was good as a blitzer off the edge, like kind of bringing him on blitzes sometimes just because of how much energy he brings, but would get faked out in pass coverage sometimes. I think he continues to find himself at the right play, in the right point at the right time. We saw it today, making multiple plays in pass coverage to break ones up, and I think that's something Jerry Mixon does really well as well. Those are how you make those plays at linebacker, just knowing where you're supposed to be and being somewhere where you can impact the game.
Absolutely. So just before we head to break here, where do we sit with these Ducks? Because I don't think you can say anything but that this was a good win for Oregon. It was still decisive. It was still over before the 4th quarter. But maybe you just have a little bit of doubt so in your mind. I felt like before this game, maybe the national opinion was swinging towards Oregon in that matchup in State College. And you're saying, hey, maybe the Ducks really do have it. I feel like probably after this, it's absolutely going to be Penn State favored. But you just think that maybe Nittany Lions have that edge. Where are we?
Yeah, we began to hear that talk that Oregon could sneakily be the best team in the country this season. In terms of just the way they dominated front to back against Oklahoma State, and that was not what we got today against Northwestern. It was a team that really had to struggle at sometimes on offense, needed to rely on their quarterback to be a playmaker and make some of those plays that not every quarterback can at the collegiate level. Um, but I think they should no doubt be a national championship contender still at this point. They should be able to go in there and compete against Penn State. I just have questions along the interiors of the line on both sides of the ball after today because I was not impressed by what I saw from Oregon's ability to run the football consistently and then their ability to stop the run consistently on defense. I think that certainly has to improve over the next couple of weeks, and I think that next week when they go to Oregon State, we'll get into that a little bit later. I think that's something they really have to show before you do have Penn State coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, Ducks host Oregon State next Saturday. That's kind of where I sit. Is there the potential is obviously there, and we've seen it flash a couple times. Just wasn't there consistently in this game. We're gonna head to break here. We'll be right back. Talk a little bit about that Oregon State game, a little bit about Penn State, close it out. See you in a minute.